So this is starting chapter 10, represent data. We'll just repeat it.
Chapter 10, represent data. Curious about math with Curious George. How many days will it snow or rain this week where you live? How can you find out?
So think of what we do for morning calendar, boys and girls, when we're doing that, and I know you do this in all the first grade rooms. We actually keep a weather graph. Sometimes we use tallies, we use a bar graph. There's different types of graphs to keep track of that.
Show what you know. Make a concrete graph. Sort a handful of red and yellow color tiles. Make a concrete graph.
So you may not have red and yellow tiles at home. So what you could do is you could use this as a penny and this as a dime or a nickel. And then you could just draw a penny and a dime. And then you could just shake them up and pull them out and sort them through as to how many you have. So that would be my suggestion. That's probably the easiest thing, is turn this into a penny and D for dime or N for nickel. And then just throw some in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there has to be less than 8 or less pennies, 8 or less nickels. And then how many are there when you count them out? And when you go to draw them in, you can just make an X to indicate I had 3 pennies and then I had 4 nickels. And then down here, the red tile represents pennies. How many pennies are there? There were 3. And it doesn't have to be pennies and nickels. If you've got brown buttons and black buttons, if you've got beans that you want to use, whatever you want to use, that you could use that to separate the two. One would equal the yellow, one would equal the red.
More, fewer. 2. Shade to show a set of fewer.
Okay, so they said shade to show a set of fewer. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the blue race cars. Now we want to show fewer, and they said to shade, which means all you're going to do is shade in the box. It's not a complete color in, and I chose to shade in 2 because 2 is fewer than 4.
Draw equal groups. 3. Draw a circle below each picture to show the same number of objects.
So if you have 3 of these, how many circles would you draw to make it equal? What equals 3? 3. Just draw in your 3. That's all you have to do.
Vocabulary builder. Review words. Graph. More, fewer, most, fewest.
So I'm going to say those again and point to them. You have graph, more, fewer, most, and fewest. The idea and throughout this chapter is that you're going to understand what those are. What do those words mean? What is the vocabulary word mean? This is showing you a graph. More, 7 is more than 1. Fewer, 1 is fewer than 7. If you had 7, 5, and 3, the most would be 7, and the fewest would be 3. So it's understanding those terms and using them throughout this chapter.
Visualize it. Complete the chart. Mark each row with a check mark. Word, I know. Sounds familiar. I do not know.
So you're going to look at each of these words and say, yeah, I knew what a graph was. You can check it here. Or, that might have sounded familiar to me, but I'm not sure. I don't know what that means. And then you check here. So you're making a graph of checking what you know about these vocabulary words.
graph, more, fewer, most, fewest.
So those are the words, and then you decide what category you have for knowledge about them and understanding.
Understand vocabulary. Use the review words. Label the groups.
So if you have 3 here and you have 5 baskets here, this would be fewer, this would be more. If you have 3 groups, then you have, I think this is a green shovel. I can't tell from my picture the angle I'm looking at. So you have here a total of 6. Here you have a total of 5. And here you have 2. So what is the most and what is the fewest? Notice they only give you 2 lines. You don't have to label this one. And then this is a game that you can play. I'll let you listen through the directions.
Chapter 10. Game. Graph game. Materials. Spinner. 16 red cubes. 16 green cubes. 16 yellow cubes.
So if you don't...
Play with a partner. 1. Spin the spinner. 2. Put 1 cube of that.
So if
Materials.
Sorry, guys.
Spinner. Materials. Spinner. 16.
If you don't have the cubes, which is highly unlikely that you will, you can use little pieces of red, green, and yellow paper. If you don't have colored paper, take a piece of paper, cut out 16, 16, 16, tear off 16 pieces, and just put a dot on it for red, a dot for green, a dot for yellow. If you have other things at home like Legos that work, that are those colors and the same size, go for it. Do whatever works for you. And this is optional. You don't have to do this.